iRacing.
Once a season, our drivers agree to disregard the Formula One origins of their car, strap in, and devote to turning solely left. Today, they'll fulfill that obligation as we get ready to watch Round 6 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Jake Sperry. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Motegi's oval and the facility as a whole are both very unique. Let's get a closer look at them with our track guide.
Welcome to the oval at the Twin Ring Motegi. Let's get a common misconception out of the way. While damaged in the earthquake of 2011, it has been repaired and would need very little done to see major racing action today. Got it? Great. But one thing is true, it doesn't get used that much nowadays, so it's great to have it here in the virtual world. In American terms, you can probably best compare this track to Gateway or Darlington in that it's egg-shaped. While both sides of the track are banked at 10 degrees, the difference is in the radius. Turns 1 and 2 are open, wide, and sweeping. Most high downforce cars will be able to take this flat out. The backstretch is also nice and wide, bringing with it plenty of side-by-side action. Turns 3 and 4, things narrow up a bit. In addition, the turn is much tighter, so you're giving the brakes a bit more of a workout here. And that opens up to a decently wide front stretch that the only challenge will be that wall on the exit of 4. Having been around since 1997, we've actually seen some history around this 1.549 mile, 2.5 kilometer track. The Lakedown Weldon got Honda's first win here, and Danica Patrick became the first woman to win an IndyCar race here. The NASCAR Cup Series made the then annual Japanese Expedition race here in 1998. That was the first race Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Dale Earnhardt Jr. raced together on, and a NASCAR West Series points race was actually ran here in 1999. Who can take the checkered flag today at Japan's premier oval? Let's find out on GSRC.
Being an asymmetric oval, Jake, is certainly going to test these drivers. It is not your traditional oval in many senses of the word.
No, and the reason why is that this is the premier Japanese-style oval that you find at Mobility Resort Motegi. A merger between the companies that ran Suzuka and Motegi created Mobility Land, which is the company that owns this circuit here. And of course, we are in the heartland of Honda's home base at Motegi. But a circuit that has the big wide arcing turns 1 and 2, the much tighter turns 3 and 4, but ever the same amount of banking, which makes it very unique in terms of how you profile through. Just the 10%, or 10 degrees, sorry, I should say, of banking that you've got to deal with around this circuit, which in terms of a track where you're doing 55 laps on it today, is going to create a lot of wear. And imagine if you supersized up New Hampshire, this is kind of what you get.
Yeah, not a lot of banking, but extremely wide. So I think those are going to be some of the defining features that we'll see for today's event. Now, as for the championship, it is back to business as usual up at the top. Andreas Valenteus now leading once again. Nicola Kaki has said he traditionally doesn't do so well at the ovals. He's going to have to try and step up to see if he can take the fight to Andreas today, as he currently runs in second. For Bruggen, with an excellent season, running about 10 points ahead of Seb Tixier right now, fighting for that third position in the points battle. Watch out for Josephine Becker. She has been up and challenging the top runners a lot this season. That's why she's in the top 10. But her luck has been a bit atrocious. I think on a good day, we could see her wind up with maybe a podium or even potentially a win. Meanwhile, Togo Hisada strangely down in 9th. We'll see whether or not one of his home tracks can manage to bring him back to the 4 and get him closer to P1 for another potential championship hunt. But that is just the F1 drivers standings. We've also got an F2 drivers championship.
Yeah, this is for the drivers who have a little bit less iRating out there, and Yannis Carpentier in control on 155 points. But today is the sort of day where the F2 drivers standings, if you're good at an oval, you're right back up there in the championship. Andres Bruno at 33 back. It is as close as you like. 2nd through 5th with Tobias Hernvey, the likes then of Mats Linden and Don Peak. 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Alan Graham then in 6th position ahead of Raul Pinochet Donoso in 7th. Andrew Eng will be going from 8th in the championship. He's only 1 point ahead of Tommy de Ruyter there in 9th position as Davide Riccardi makes up the top 10. Again, a further point back of that.
They also have a Nations Cup, and it's scored slightly differently with multiple drivers able to contribute, so that's why it does not perfectly match what we have for the drivers' standings. Italy and Liechtenstein beating out Ukraine with Valenteus contributing the points for Ukraine, beating United Kingdom by only a single point by now. So that's going to be a fun little fight there, at least at this halfway point in the season. We should point out that after today, we are partway done through season 1 here in 2026. You've, of course, got very close fights here at these stages because the consistency of multiple drivers helps keep that one close between them, although Italy, with a handy 15-point lead, could definitely use that. We'll see if Kaki can bring that one home to give them a title in the Cup of Nations. Real quickly, Jake, before we get to the race, do you want to run us through the race details?
Well, it's 55 laps here over the course of this halfway round of the season. So expect these lap times to be about 35, 36 seconds at full bore. So this one should take about an hour to get done on the books. Now, these drivers will know that there is no spare car available to them today. So if they break the car, it's all done and dusted. And don't worry too much about drive-through at 17 and disqualification at 25. That should happen. Worth noting, even though we are running an oval, do not expect safety cars or cautions to come out. This one is just going to be a flat sprint.
Exactly, and that changes the dynamic of the race. You cannot afford to lose the lead pack. And with the slipstream so powerful in these cars, it will be ultra important to stay in touch there because you'll have a shot at the win. Valenteus will start on the pole and converts his road racing prowess to the oval. Jacob Reed starting in 2nd next to him. Kurt Clapper, who doesn't usually qualify, is starting in 3rd. Bill Tyler will begin from 4th and Unai Ortiz in 5th. Mick Claridge, P6, is then followed by the other Clapper, Jason, starting in 7th. Leo Sequeira will start in 8th as Lars Stolson is in 9th, and Gary Ho rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel with both Clappers inside the top 10. I feel a bit unwell understanding that, but Shunsuke Tashima likes to come out for these races. We'll start from 11th with Nicola Cocchi then, who has got, quote-unquote, a rookie oval license. Will be in 12th position with Kevin Verbruggen 13th and Marco Antonio Lopez there in 14th position. Then it's Seb Tixier, I would say out of position in 15th, John Olsen 16th and Jorge Nieva 17th. They are top 10 faithfuls out there. Glenn Becker will line this one up in 18th, and a driver who should be able to make the progress through the field with the high oval iRating, Jeffrey Stanton there in 19th place. Jem Matzan in the number 35 will round out your 20.
Yeah, the oval shakes up the order quite a bit typically. Cam Porter in 21st. Xavier Sanchez, another driver that's usually way farther up, in 22nd. Michael Grissinger, P23. Yannis Carpentier will start 24th. Yoshihiro Hashimoto will start in 25th. On the outside of him, it'll be Alan Graham. Then it's Will Lamb in 27th. Tobias Harnvey starts 28th, and Rafael Camacho 29th, flanked by Matt White to round out the top 30. Just a couple more cars here. A relatively large grid, but for oval racing it should work. Thomas Tuba starts 31st with Mats Linden in 32nd, and Robert Plumley, the last driver managing to set a time in 33rd. Zach Hummel, Josephine Becker, and Robert Reynolds failed to set a time in qualifying. Might not be the worst idea to start at the back, although they're not going to be hunting for a victory most likely, but could try to avoid some accidents that may happen in the midfield. The weather, very plainly, is actually quite foggy today, unfortunately. Well, it's not foggy, it's hazy, I should say, as I'm showing 0% fog out there. Track temperature at about 80 Fahrenheit, 95% humidity here out on the track this afternoon in Japan. So hopefully the virtual fans can see from one end of the track to the other without too much trouble.
Well, it is a bit of a case of you can drink the air out there. It would make a very nice broth for some miso soup at this point in time. But what you can say as well is these drivers will have to go extra careful because this is open wheel and it can't be any more open wheel than what they've got. The last time that they ran open wheel here in terms of a big major event just so happened to be IndyCar running themselves around here. So they've got to just avoid the big contact and do exactly what they need as in comes the pace car.
The drivers are ready to go, and the green flag is out immediately. There's no waiting for this one, and Grissinger takes off up ahead as, it looks like my timing and scoring is correcting itself. Audrias Valenteus is leading. Jacob Reed in second with Kurt Clapper following behind as they start to get up to speed. Very high speeds around here for these cars. Looking at 190 miles an hour by the time they get on the brakes down into turns 3 and 1.
Yeah, and Cam Porter is going to drop down the order because he undertook on the start, and so that's put troubles. And speaking of which, we got him up on the top side right now with about 3 cars pointing the wrong way. Seb Tixier is one of them, and I think the Satsomi and Principe car of John Olsen was another. So troubles on the start for Olsen, for Tixier, and Marco Antonio Lopez out, but critically, give yourself room at the start of these races, work into the level as we focus on 8th. Tyler seeing Nicola Cocchi then making moves. It's clear you want to be topside. Look at the power of the draft.
Yeah, and we saw on the end of lap 1, Ortiz nearly got into the side of, I think it was Bill Tyler, kind of pushed him nearly out to the wall. He dropped back a little bit, but there's still a huge pack here going all the way down to many cars, so nobody is out of it quite yet. Jacob Reed sets the fastest lap of the race in the meantime. He and Valenteus did get themselves an 0.8 of a second gap as we check in with Nicola Cocchi. He's fighting with Leo Sequeiro for 7th.
Yeah, and it's going to be a bit different setting up the car because you need to get the tyres to work in an operating window around here. You're looking to lean as much as you can on the left-hand side tyres to get you through. The rights have just got to hold on through as Cocchi there in this 8th place group, which pretty much sits on the back of Mick Claridge and Kurt Clapper at the moment. You're looking to build it up. And while you'll see certain drivers, as Unai Ortiz sets the fast lap of the race, get themselves a good gap early like Valenteus and Reed, they can do so by leaning early on the tyre and building that gap. Don't expect them to hold that same pace all throughout this race. This is going to be the sort of race where if you're going to burn through the tyre early, you might have nothing left by the time the end of the race comes about.
Well, will we see Reed and Valenteus do that? Because they're now over a second ahead. I did not expect 2 cars to be able to jump away this quickly. It's Mick Claridge and Kurt Clapper that are trying their best to leapfrog back and catch them up. You can see them here with Ortiz giving chase. He's got Jason Clapper just behind him and Nicola Cocchi also close by. That is Jason Clapper in the, Kurt Clapper rather, in the Miller liveried car, and very glad to see him up in the top 10, vying for a good position. We'll see whether or not he or Jason can manage to wind up on the podium today as they string their way out. The gap still at 1.3 seconds up to the top 2.
But Joe, you do have to ask this question right now out of Kurt Clapper as he's come to Japan. Surely it would have been more appropriate to have an Asahi livery.
Exactly. We'll have to ask him if he actually comes in. We've been trying to get them to come and chat with us post-race, but still no dice. Maybe this will do it as Leo Sequeiro here still following Nicola Cocchi. Kurt Clapper just in front of them. This is Jason now on the inside of Ortiz, who runs just a little bit too wide. Jason moves himself at least briefly up into fourth position before the slingshot moves Ortiz back ahead of him.
Yeah, so if you're looking for that clearance, the important thing is to run a slingshot. So if you can get the pass through 1 and 2, you can then have a slingshot and go again 3 and 4. More troubles out there. Hashimoto out. Hernvey in the pits with the black and orange mechanical flag. So that's more dramas with those drivers further back in the field trying to sort themselves out. Almost a little look there of 3 wide as Laust Olsen now will get the 3 as he tiptoes by Kevin Verbruggen and Kurt Clapper. Clapper looking the wrong side of this one as they go, but actually gives some credit here to Mick Claridge. Even though that gap was 1.3 seconds, he's slowly reeling this one in. Speaking of now, as we work on through, that was Hernvey down there on the bottom. You got Cocky, Clapper and Ortiz, and they're at risk here of being dropped by Mick.
Yeah, kind of, again, some unexpected happenings here at the front of the field. Mick been able to break away from this group really says something. I wonder how much of it is the setup of the car giving you a bit more speed. It is a secret that is slightly at odds with what we tend to see over on the roadside, where it's more down to driver preference, but it seems here drivers have found a few secrets that maybe they haven't told the others as we continue to watch Cocky chasing on Ortiz with Clapper close behind. Also, while we have a chance, I want to give a quick mention that this race has been dedicated by the drivers to Colin Bentley. The late, great Colin still holds the world record, apparently, around this track, even years after his passing.
Yeah, and it's always wonderful to see there the commemoration of drivers who have done everything that they can to say, look, this is how quick we can be around this place, and some wonderful work as well as we take a look on the back of Nicola Cocky with that Ford DFV Cosworth engine, possibly the greatest engine that has ever existed in motorsport for its longevity and what it did to set a benchmark. And this is what this group needs to do here of Ortiz, Cocky, Clapper, Sequeiro and co. Back to Olsen, Verbruggen, Tyler, Nieva, and Kurt Clapper. Get yourself working together. You can't just go chucking it down the inside and hoping it sticks. There's a little wide there where Unai Ortiz. That will get the clearance then for Nicola to move up to fourth position. The moment you just start throwing and trying to make moves, you hold yourself up, you lose time, and you don't think you can lose time very quickly, but trust me, that gap was a second only a lap ago, and now look at it, it's almost up to 1.5.
Yeah, I think they've been dropped by this point, and they're now just kind of squabbling amongst themselves. Cocky up 8 spots from where he started. If his qualifying was better, you kind of wonder what he could have done if he rode the coattails of guys like Claridge. In the meantime, they're all just exchanging position. I think one of the advantages of this track, it seems like there are multiple lines possible on both ends of the track.
And when you've got a wide circuit like this, it does offer different opportunities. That low-line groove is one way of doing it, but you can jump second or third line and then pivot for the late apex exit coming out of here, so you can sort of play in between the lines out there. Most people think it's just out to in to out, and that's how it goes. As here comes the block, not going to happen there. Ortiz and Cocky now having a big tussle, and now to the outside comes the little search there from Jason Clapper. So it's getting a little bit prickly here in this chase group, because Mick Claridge has used the likes of Cam Porter as a slingshot to join the leading trio. So this is big for this group. Right now you've got a podium scrap and everybody else, and at the moment everybody else pretty much it's a free-for-all in the OK Corral.
This is going to get fascinating soon enough, because we're on lap 13 and they're already halfway around the track to the back of the field. As you mentioned, a little bit of use of one of those back markers to get in it is Salgado, unfortunately getting all caught up and winding up in the wall. That's usually not a small accident around here, and you're likely to not return very soon if you wind up in the wall. Ortiz still running in 5th, but has now been stuck behind Nicola Cocky. Those two have been trading that 4th position back and forth for a number of laps here, but Olsen, Sequeiro, Clapper, are all holding on.
Someone's gone around in the background. It's Jeffrey Stanton who's down in the inside wall, and that will be Stanton's day done. It's so easy to do. You think you can stamp on the power in these cars. You can't. You've got to baby them. You've got to feather them.
So much power underneath them, over 400 horsepower. And you got to remember, They're not like modern IndyCar, modern Formula One. There's no downforce on these machines. In fact, at high speeds, they tend to generate just a little bit of lift.
They do, and so when the front gets light, you just get very careful, as we watch Nieva just have a little bit of a tag with the wall, and so you've got to be very, very choice when you're putting the power down. How much has the car rotated through the corner, and what are you going to get off of the exit? So Nieva finding out that this group here is just going to continue to race aggressive and firm, and they're not going to get their act together because those front three are going to do what they can right now. But here's the issue that they're going to run into out there on this circuit today, is that those drivers who can't keep up the pace, traffic might be a little bit of a factor. Yes, you've got a lot of high side to go get around them, but also when you catch is going to be important.
Well, and letting the leaders through is a completely different skill on the oval side than it is on the road side too. How many of these drivers are familiar with this style of racing, knowing how to let them through a little bit more easily? Already Valenteus, Reed, and Claridge going past another of our lap cars. Robert Reynolds, back row Bob, as he's known, is allowing them through as we continue to watch Cocky fighting with Ortiz. Ortiz gets a good run off the corner down the back straight. He's going to look to the inside. Nicola does not cover him. Sequeiro starts to follow, but does not stick his nose underneath the Italian. So Ortiz back up the fourth.
Yeah, very nice move, and at the moment you start to hope that you can get the drives then that set yourself up, because we're nearing towards halfway in about the next 10 laps or so. So you're starting to think, okay, well, I've got myself established. We've done all the finding out stage of this race. This is what this driver's going to do. This is what that driver's going to do. Now you've got to try and really start jumping up and saying, right, this is what I'm capable of. I need to position myself for the best possible result. As we look at your leading trio right now, let Aldrius do all the donkey work, because remember, if you're out there at the front, what you're doing more than anything else is burning fuel more than anyone else. If you sat second, you sat third, you can wait a little bit, and then in the final 10 laps or so, you can be much more aggressive.
That's a good point as we come back to Jason Clapper once again around the outside of Leo Sequeiro. Now, this track can sometimes give you better momentum off that high side, and it does just ever so slightly as he pulls ahead of the white number 26, and then down into the banking once again. Ortiz passing on the inside of Nicola Cocky. It is in constant flux around here. One thing that you need to be comfortable with in this style of racing, Jake, is racing close to your competitors.
And you got to remember, you got to race close, but you can't do the old NASCAR technique of bumping them out the way. You can't use a chrome horn, because the moment you do, everyone just gets tangled and snared in the catch fence. So you're pretty much saying, look, we've got to get close, but we can't get close. And so if you're stuck on the outside, you get a little bit of trouble. There's a little feint of 3 wide from Nieva, trying to have a little search, and he's going to get to 3, and the door's just going to shut there on the inside. I tell you what, trying to be at the front of this group, trying to get this gaggle all sorted up, it's like herding bubbles at the moment if you're Unai Ortiz. It's the last place you want to be. Cocky again dives to the front, but notice how it's only those two at the front. No one else has been able to make any legitimate ground to jump into this group.
Yeah, they seem to be just that little bit quicker, or maybe they're the only ones willing to push the air for the whole group of everybody just kind of collecting up here. Trying to see where this actually breaks off, or if it even breaks off, and I think it goes down to Will Lamb, it looks like. So from 4th to 17th is your second pack.
Yep, and he'll certainly be hoping that he can get up there, but he might be already at this stage a little late to the party. Lambing season is traditionally in the spring, so it means that Will Lamb here in what is early January is now going to need a lot of jumping up this order. Oh, big issue! There, Leo Sequeiro and co. Bang! Hard into the wall down there at the bottom is Unai Ortiz, and that's what happens. One little moment shakes the cart.
I think he got the outside wall from what I could see from my perspective. And yeah, he's done. He's having to take a tow to pit lane. And Nieva, missing a wheel off his wagon, is able to drive it back, but I doubt we'll be seeing him again.
No, and I'm sure that Jorge Nieva-Maca is not going to be best pleased after an incident like that, but we'll continue on as Jacob Reed will not know what has happened there in the back. Will just be happily just going about his job, getting his point, getting on to time. Now, in previous seasons, it was a case of the fastest drivers typically were mid-pack around here, but you got to make every race count. It's almost as if the fastest drivers, even here, are the fastest drivers here. Valenteus, Reed, and Claridge can win any race.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the iRating. Valenteus has over 5,000 on the oval side. Reed, over 6,000. I'd say they've done a few oval races here and there, so they know what they're doing. And I know Mick has run this car many a time, even though his iRating is a little bit lower than these two on the oval side. We're seeing right now how skilled he is taking this car around this circuit. And I get the sense that Mick is just kind of biding his time. He didn't catch up to them and try to pass for the lead. He's been sitting in this third spot ever since.
Yeah, we're going to get a catchback of what has just happened with Leo Sequeiro. So you can see he's got Laust Olsen on his inside. He moves up the circuit here and now tries to get the drive coming out. And yeah, he just gets in the wake and you just wash out. There isn't what we call quote unquote much to deal with. Ortiz hits his own barrier there in the wall. There's nothing Nieva can do. He's just going to ride up and over the top of the wheel. And that's why he finds himself in trouble. And actually, looking at Nieva, his wheel actually collapses as it lands back down onto the circuit rather than over the top of the suspension, which is incredible, actually, that the suspension hasn't been able to take the load as it's gone and made that over the top. But what you find around here is that when you want to put the power down, when you're stuck behind another car, even cars like these, which have no quote-unquote downforce, it still creates a pocket of dirty air. Not as much as you think, but enough that if you're half a car width outside, you're going through a long left-hander, you're still going to have to lift off a little bit through the corner because you can't follow directly behind at the same speed you can do normally. As we watch Glenn Becker with the smiley faces on his VR, and he's got the heart rate monitor, 120 BPM.
Yeah, I got to think that this is going to be a little bit higher heart rate than is typical for him, especially if he gets stuck in with some of the awesome action that we've been seeing. He runs in 11th, up 7 from where he began so far in this race. Josephine Becker, though, has put everybody to shame. Starting from the back of the field, she has made 21 spots.
Yeah, 21 spots out there is certainly a huge go, especially as she dropped a connection in qualifying. She couldn't actually set a lap time that she wanted to, so that was a really tough scenario right now as Jacob Reed sits there in that second place. He has just been the shadow of Valenteus this entire time. Might have a chance with the Swede here if Tobias Hernvey and isn't going to go and make that move, but Jacob Reed actually can be one of the most analytical drivers out there. Day job, Joe, data scientist.
Exactly. He probably knows how to crunch these numbers and get the best out of the car just by looking at some graphs. Meanwhile, Bill Tyler here just behind Laust Olsen. Both drivers that have been racing in this series a long time, but Bill Tyler tends to be known as a bit of an oval specialist in this car. I'm a bit surprised that he's only running 8th right now.
Yes, but at the same time, Bill has had to work hard in this group, has built himself a platform, and maybe he's going to get better into the second half of this race. But as the train's already left the station, there's not much you can do except run down the tracks right now like your name's Ewan McGregor. So it's very, very tough at the moment to say I can go and get back and make this happen. Change for the lead, though. Jacob Reed decides at about halfway, I'm going to make my move and go to the front. So interesting to see that change happen. McLaren for 3rd and now a change for 4th as Jason Clapper decides he wants to lead the chase at 5.5 seconds, if not 6 seconds off the lead.
This strikes me as really interesting, actually, Jake, because what do you think is the motivating factors? It looks like now Mick is even going to follow suit. Like we've seen, drivers can make moves at seemingly any time if they want to start to go on the attack. Why now?
Well, why now will be, I want track position. So you're starting to think about, okay, you're looking for a number, you're looking to hit a number. If you're Jacob Reed, you've sat behind Aldris the entire race. You know you've got the ability to go out there and attack in the second half. You've allowed Aldris here to just sit and dictate the tempo. And if you think it's not quick enough, you jump to the front and you put a little bit of emphasis into it. You saw it there where Aldrius fell back to about 4.5 Mick Claridge had a little bit of a search, couldn't quite find it, and then you sit yourself back in line in second. So there is a sense of how are you going to get to that next phase? Are you going to be able to get this group to jump up and actually work at the pace that you want to? Mick, a little bit cheeky there actually through 1 and 2, just getting half a car under the apron. Now that's a big taboo out there in racing. You can't run it under the apron. The apron effectively dictates the line.
Exactly. It's going to really change the geometry of how the car turns, so you don't want to hit that flat too much. I think he got away with it now. Jason Clapper versus Cocky. Clapper around the outside. Cocky's going to fight for it. It's no longer up against Ortiz, but even still, you don't often see Nicola Cocky fighting against Jason Clapper. Verbruggen watching from behind. Laus Stolsen in this quartet as well, as Cocky tries to run the low side. Jason Clapper carrying it high, wide, and handsome. Loses the spot temporarily, but shows that that high, longer line still carries the speed well.
And Nicola Cocky, the way he's driving, Joe, he might actually get an I rating out of this race.
Yeah, exactly. This does count towards your oval I rating, your oval safety rating as well. iRacing changed that a couple years ago, and I'm actually kind of quite glad they did that. I feel like it definitely makes a bit of a difference. Gives you a chance to maybe try and race something a bit more familiar. But for these drivers, as we come back to Valenteus, Claridge, and Reed, now Mick has managed to sneak by Jacob.
Well, from first to second and now back to third. So couple laps out there at the front, and that one in just a case of 2 corners, or 3 corners, however you want to count it. He's now down at the back of this group, and they're going to have to start figuring out where do you want to be, when do you want to be. Again, this group working, and I look around at Verbruggen, who started in 13th, at the likes then of Javier Sanchez in this group, the former Porsche All-Star, Heike 360 ES. He's there in 10th position, a gain of 12. He's the biggest mover in this group, and I tell you what, the Spaniards have proven over the last few years, Joe, they are really good at ovals.
Absolutely, and they're also very good at this car. We've seen a number of them hop in and be incredibly fast. Sanchez, definitely one of those who has taken a few victories, I believe, over the years, although it's been a minute because the competition has ramped up tremendously as of late. Looking back at Jason Clapper, he sizes up Nicola Cocky coming down into one, and we'll call it 4 corners since we're doing oval racing. We'll go by the traditional measure.
Certainly will, and so working out of turn 2, the long issue that you find trying to get this drive, and there goes Valenteus out of the race lead. Mick Claridge now takes a stint at the front, and Jacob Reed down low tries to get a drive but won't get there. So the clearance then is made, and Mick going defensive a little bit then into 1 and 2, and really having to go and make some progress here with 19 laps remaining in this race. You feel that if they don't do anything silly in this front group, it's between these 3, and Mick has a very good tendency of being up near the pointy end at the ovals. I remember when he had a race at Martinsville, he was right up there as Valenteus has a little peek to the inside. He was right up there with 5 to go, and then he threw it in the inside pit retaining wall into 1 and 2. Mick will want to avoid an issue like that today.
He tends to be unafraid to go close to the edge around here. And he's raced against Valenteus. He's raced against Reed plenty of times. He goes way up high. Maybe decided now is not the time then. He comes back down to the group and relinquishes the lead going to 3rd. Valenteus now up on the point of the group. Further illustrating what I was talking about earlier, it definitely seems like it's almost like super speedway racing we've got here, just with a little bit less banking.
Yes, and that's because of the nature of these cars. They're very good at slipstreaming, and so if you can stay within range of the cars in front, any large circuit like this is going to feel super speedway. This makes the cookie cutters look like super speedways out there, where you're having to work together with the cars in and around you and give yourself as much platform to go out there and charge. I find it brilliant. They could have raced right here all the way over to Utsunomiya, the capital of the Tochigi Prefecture, and realizing that, hey, look, as far as this race goes, we can go and draft this one all day long. The only issue you're going to find is this is a circuit that is meant to test drivers and test cars. There's a reason why Honda have their test plant just a couple of towns over.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, Josephine Becker, she's still up 21, but is fighting with Sunsuke Tashima now. Looks like Tashima gets the shot off the corner. She almost comes back in line, but then decides to stay a little bit lower than the Japanese driver. Jim Matson just behind in the orange machine, giving watch on the pair of them. This is mid-pack. Josephine, like you said, having to suffer a bit from a lack of qualifying, but coming back extremely well today.
I'm not sure if what we've just heard in YouTube chat is true or not, but apparently Laust Olsen's going with a broken arm.
Holy cow. That is incredible. As well, big moment there for Tashima. He gets incredibly loose coming off of turn 4. Matson takes advantage. Grissinger almost goes by as well, but thankfully no accident.
Yeah, Josephine had to make sure that there was enough room to get around and has done very well in the My Neighbor Totoro, number 24, getting the clearance as Tashima now falls back into the group, running the classic Honda livery that used to be run in Formula 1 at the time. So it's really started to show. And actually, they're just lifting out of it slightly as Alan Graham then goes through and gets the position. I'm just looking around at Mick Claridge, who's desperately trying to cling on to the group now. He's suddenly been dropped off because he had a big wiggle. End of lap 40, nearly lost the car entirely.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a bit of netcode involved in some of the wiggles that we just saw there with Tashima, but we're going to move away from that for now. Back to the battle for fourth. Kaki and Olsen are now trying to deal for that position. Clapper watching from 6 as Verbruggen now comes up around the outside and gets a good run down the main straight towards turn 1. He's going to move himself into P6. Olsen briefly ahead, still deciding to use that bottom line. Kaki, I thought he was going to be able to shoot by him, but no dice.
No, it's a very good battle that you got out here with these drivers. They're looking to prove that they can be best of the rest, and they are going to make those progresses down the inside as Koki tries to really work hard here to cover Laust Olsen off. Just about manages it there through the mid part of 3 into 4. And so Jason Clapper on that outside. Verbruggen now has to get some tow, otherwise he's going to lose at least a car length and a half along the straight. Look at the way they fan, and they'll have traffic to deal with in front. That's Zach Hummel who goes to the outside, actually buries it in the barriers there on the outside and getting through. And what I find interesting, Kevin Verbruggen representing Liechtenstein, one of only 2 countries in the world that are double landlocked.
Kevin is now going to try and see if he can send it up on Jason Clapper, who goes just a little bit high, riding the bottom side, switching with Olsen. Nikola Kaki finds himself at the point once again, but it's still outside the podium unless something happens with those top 3. Laust gets a run. He takes the low line. Jason Clapper just behind Kaki, kind of riding on his coattails, now starts to size these two up. Great run, though, coming off the corner from Nikola Kaki. He moves right back in front of Olsen.
Well, he'll get the run down into turn 3 and 4, the much tighter section. They drop the speed, they scrub down to 190, 185 kilometers an hour. You back up on the power and you look at what speed they're tipping in towards 1 and 2. They are doing upwards of 290 kilometers an hour, which is insane for these cars, which are running in the 1960s, you know, the Graham Hill, the Jim Clark era of racing, and all they had between them, 290 kilometers an hour, and you've got a leather helmet protecting you, and that's it.
Yeah, safety was a minor concern at these stages. Now, our top drivers have started picking up the pace. We've seen fastest laps set once again, and that might explain why we're seeing Mick Claridge struggling a tiny bit to keep up with him. The gap has been just between 3 and 5/10 of a second. He's not totally out of it, but he's going to have to get closer if he wants a chance to make a pass.
Well, Mick here is knowing the understanding of what he's got in front of them. They're burning the fuel down, so the car's getting lighter. As it gets lighter, you have less downforce in the corners. The car gets a little bit more loose as you go through. And so it's about having a car that works for every single element of this stint rather than just having a car that's good when you've got a lot of fuel in it. And so what you're seeing now is that these drivers can now let loose. They can go out there and attack. But what you're also seeing from Jacob Reed is patience, because he doesn't have to throw it down the inside straight away. He's got time. He's got half a second in the back pocket over Mick Claridge, so he can afford to wait and say, Aldrius, are you going to do the donkey work here, or am I going to have to try and make a move with about, what, 3 laps to go?
Well, we'll find out soon enough, and that technical knowledge of Reed definitely coming in handy. Worth noting that Mick Claridge, despite also being a musician, is a mechanic as well. So maybe that's why we're seeing him so quick in this car. Makes me wonder, what is Valenteus' background that he's been able to also set it up so well?
Wait. That was close. Nicola Cocky there tried to move across on Jason Clapper. Clapper was already alongside. Too late to shut the barn door there, Nicola. Jason had already bolted.
Oh, and a car into the wall. I think that was Cocky just smacking the outside on the corner exit. Kurt Clapper's out of it, though. He must have hit even harder as it comes to a halt down at the bottom.
I told you it needed to be a Sahit. That's the difference maker there. A Miller Lite. It's only light there to contact, but enough to throw it in the barriers. So tough there for Kurt, but he knows he's got more he's got to try and uncover as they go with just 5.5 laps left in this race. I think now you're getting to that fatigue level of everyone's done lap after lap after lap. Here's a look at Kurt Clapper. He just gets up high in the middle of the corner, back starts stepping out, he hits the wall, he tries to save it, 1, 2, around you go.
As wide as it is, it wasn't wide enough to catch it before it smacked into the wall. And that ended his race prematurely. A bit of a shame. He was having a good one out there. Back to our top 3. Mick Claridge has closed it back in. 5 laps to go. You made a good point. The mental fatigue that comes from the constant focus of this style of racing at this speeds has got to be tremendous. Mick Claridge, though, is once again, he goes under the white line just a bit. Maybe trying to get the car to rotate that tiny bit more. Goes for second.
Yeah, but you realise as you come up the banking, you also scrub the speed, and so he doesn't get the run on the outside that Jacob Reed does, who will now slingshot his way on about the 2.5 groove in towards 1 and 2. He'll look again to pick up that outer line on the exit, but he gets a tiny wiggle to go through, and the more they run side by side, well, there's a certain Aldrius Valenteus. You want to talk about his background, Joe? He has been sim racing here in iRacing since 2009. He has been absolutely wonderful racing back in the days where you didn't have broadcasts, where you just had an iRacing understanding of an article after the race, where he was up against drivers the likes of Alexia Loma.
He's been at the top end for a long, long time now. He is used to this sort of pressure. In oval racing, we talk a lot about give and take, but it's a lot less give, a lot more take now, as nobody is going to be giving an inch, especially here at the front. It'll be up to who wants the win the most. Reed wants it for now as he slingshots ahead of Valenteus and takes the point.
Well, the point here, but watch Valenteus' run. He ran in deep to the corner so he could diamond off the middle and get the drive off the exit. That gives him the attack back into 1 and 2, and again he will now command that inside line. Mick Claridge, he's going to have to upset this tandem working with 2 laps to go if he wants to go and make something happen. Watch the way that Jacob Reed just commands the outside line. At the tighter corner it's going to be tougher, and 3 wide with a lap and a half to go. Mick Claridge down low with a power move to set himself up for the white.
He likes that shallow entry, but it's not been working off the corner, and he gets loose. That forces Valenteus to have to check up. Jacob Reed, with 1 lap to go, is going to find himself with the best gap he has had almost the entire race over those behind him. Mick Claridge trying desperately to catch back up. As we can see on the corner, we still have a huge race for 4th as well. Right now, it is Olsen who holds on to that. Jacob Reed up at the top, still with a gap of about 0.4 of a second. Claridge unable to gain enough before this one comes to an end. And as they approach the checkered flag, Jacob Reed will be victorious here in Motegi.
Well, you say how tough of a race this is. This is critical in terms of what you need to sort your season out. And there, as you see the drive coming to the line, Laust Olsen will pick up fourth. Mick just needed an opportunity. He pretty much drove himself out the picture into it and then back out of it again. Aldris, I think, will be desperately unlucky out of today to only get third. He commanded that race.
And I believe it is the first time that Valenteus has not won a race that he's entered this season. It won't hurt him too badly, but like you said, yeah, he'll be disappointed with how much of an expectation he has of himself. Wow, that gave us the type of racing we pretty much expected, but it still was a question mark all the way to the finish. And Jacob Reed was the one to answer that question in the end, taking the victory here on the seasonal oval round that they run 4 times a year here in the Lotus 49. So let's take a look at your finishing order. And as we mentioned, Jacob Reed on that top spot today, winning by about 0.3 of a second, just over that, over Mick Claridge. About the biggest gap we saw all race. Valenteus came up third. Laust Olsen, that's huge in oval terms, 11 seconds behind in fourth. Jason Clapper was P5, Xavier Sanchez 6, and for Bruggen in 7th. Cocky, after clipping the wall late, slipped down the order. He was only 8th position. Bill Tyler was 9th. And Gary Hill, I think, finished exactly where he started in 10th.
Yeah, very good run from him. Over then to the second page, where Glenn Becker would finish off in 11th, ahead of Will Lamb, who had gained 15 places. And your biggest gainer is Josephine Becker. No relation. Glenn Becker from America, Josephine Becker, she's from Germany. And that gain of 18 proving massive. Alan Graham would finish off in 14th, ahead of Michael Grissinger and Shunsuke Toshima there in 16th. Matt White having a quiet gain of 13 up to 17th position. Also 13 gained for Thomas Tuber in 18th. It would be a gain of 14 for Robert Plumley in 19th. And your top 20 rounded out by the Spaniard, Rafael Camacho.
From there, Yannis Carpentier was 21st. Jim Matson was 22nd. You've got Mats Linden in P23. Cam Porter was 24th today, followed by Zach Hummel in 25th. Robert Reynolds was P26, a lap down. From there, we get to cars that ran into trouble. Kurt Clapper in 27th, 4 laps down. Tobias Harnvey, or 6 laps down, rather, for Kurt. Tobias, 9 laps down in 28th. Nieva got back out on the track and was 29th, but it was DNFs for Ortiz, Sequeiro, Stanton, Hashimoto, Salgado, Tixier, and Olsen. Unfortunately, we tend to see a lot of those retirements here in these oval races. But we did not see a retirement from Cam Porter today, although he did wind up a lap down. Let's chat with him and see how the race felt from his perspective. Cam, we often see these oval races be a little bit about survival. You survived today, but how do you feel about the results?
Well, yeah, I survived, but I made that stupid mistake at the beginning and forgot about the rule about not passing before the start-finish line. Yeah, I gassed it on green and got the drive-through penalty because I passed on the inside. Yeah, I forgot about that rule, but obviously I had the pace to keep up with the tail end of that top 10 fight, so I feel like if I hadn't made that silly mistake, maybe I could have done a lot better, maybe inside the top 10 even, maybe.
Well, how often do you run these oval races? How familiar are you with some of the idiosyncrasies that come with this style of racing?
I have done a lot of oval racing, actually. I'm not an oval specialist by any means, but I am experienced, which makes it even sillier that I forgot about that don't pass before the start-finish line rule. But yeah, I am experienced enough, but usually when I race oval, it's a start from the back race because I want to just survive and have some fun, and I did that today, but not in the way I wanted.
I'm sure. Well, commiserations on that front. I guess it's a lesson that'll probably stick in your mind from now on, but still glad to see it make the finish this time.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Go talk to those leaders.
It's Cam Porter, who did get home to the checkered flag in 24th, so at least he gained some safety rating out of that. In the meantime, I believe Jake has caught up to Mick Claridge.
I have here, and Mick, today, you did all the hard work, I think is the best way to say it. You bridged the gap over, you got to the front, but there are two moments that this race pretty much sets itself up. One, your big save that you needed that cost you almost a second, and then secondly, you had to go back to the issues at 3 and 4, just dancing under the apron slightly, making that move with a lap and a bit to go. Talk us through that final moment there of the race where the back just starts to step out and suddenly Jacob Reed runs away.
Yeah, that was so annoying. Yeah, my car was horrendous in turn 1 and 2 all through the race. I'm surprised I caught the guys, to be honest with you, with the understeer rate in 1 and 2, but it was really good in 3 and 4, especially on the brakes into 3. So that's where I was making all the gains. And yeah, I just wanted to, give it a little bit more throttle, 1 for 4, and then yeah, that's what happens. But yeah, it's the first full race stint I've done, so I didn't really know what the tyres were going to be like. I mean, they normally don't change through the whole race, but you can melt them. So I was melting the fronts a bit, and then on the exit of 4, I was melting the rears a couple of times, which was the big slide, So no, I was happy just to be able to keep up with the guys. Maybe they weren't pushing too hard, when I had that huge, great big slide, and was able to catch back up. But yeah, no, it was good fun. It was a shame it ended with a bit of a slide and tapping Aldris like that.
Well, sometimes that's the way racing goes. You get some of the best drivers together, stuck at the front of the field, and, something's got to give at some point. Such amazing racing has been proven over the time and from the cars of this era. And I believe you've got it very close and near and dear to you about this race today dedicated to Colin Bentley.
Yeah, Colin's a guy that we lost a couple of years ago now. And yeah, he was a mid-pack driver, but he was one of the boys, he was one of us, and he just sort of went silent on us one day, and in the end we found out that he'd passed away, sadly, so this particular track just holds really good memories of me and Colin. I remember coming in the Sunday host, and he was like lightning. He was so fast, it was like, Jesus, where's this come from, and yeah, he broke the lap record this week, and he was untouchable. He didn't win the broadcast race. I think something happened with him and Bill, but yeah. So it just brings that memory back to Colin, when I come here, and so yeah, it's it's a nice feeling, and that's what the burnouts were for at the end, So come on, guys, let's burnouts for Colin, come on. And Kevin was the only one that joined in. I think he was the only one that heard me. So yeah, rest in peace, Colin Bentley, mate. Thinking of you.
And so with halfway in this season sorted, it's not necessarily been the easiest one for you over the running so far, but next week it gets, I would say, tougher than an oval race because it's Long Beach and a circuit which everyone's probably looked at it on the calendar and had a little bit of an eye twitch and a wince.
Oh, I love Long Beach. Do you know what? This car in Long Beach, if you set it up right, you can just hammer it down that front straight, and the back end comes out around that right hand kink, and you just keep your foot to the floor, and it's just got a nice 4-wheel drift. If you get the setup right, I've only been able to do that once. But yeah, do you know what, Jake? I'm still trying to go on this ride, mate. But you know what the UK weather's like. I'm, faced with 100-mile-an-hour storms and all sorts of stuff going on. So I want to go out on the ride, and I want to go and visit all the guys in the UK first, but I might be racing because of weather. So yeah, you never know.
Well, if we see you, we'll wish you the best of luck. And of course, if we don't see you, then I'll see you later, I guess is the way it's
going. Yeah.
Mick Claridge then, joining us then and having a really nice run today. 3rd place overall. And I believe the one-armed wonder that is Laust Olsen has caught up with Joe Peak.
Exactly, which makes me wonder, Laust, we've heard that you're racing on a broken arm. I hope it is your left one that is broken so that you've got that right arm to turn left all the time.
No, it's the opposite way.
Oh no!
But actually, that's fine. I'm left-handed, so for the daily work, that's better with the right arm. So. Yeah, but I slipped on some ice and landed badly and broke my arm just above the wrist. So this is the first week I'm trying to race again since that accident, and yeah, kind of getting difficult to remember to. I'm now using the same hand to change up and down, and sometimes I'm nearly getting the wrong finger and shifting the wrong way. So otherwise it went quite well, and it was a really good and fun race.
Well, like I said in the broadcast, that makes it all the more impressive, especially with you winding up in fourth, with so much to concentrate on with a different process. I mean, how did you manage to do that and deal with a pack of about 7 or 8 cars that were constantly swapping for that position?
Yeah, it was the gear changes wasn't as much as a problem. I only downshifted to the last corner and then upshifted again around the start-finish straight. So, but there was a couple of times where I missed the upshift and went all the way down to first corner in fourth gear. But otherwise, it's trying to keep your lane and don't change lanes when you suspect you have a car on the other on your inside or outside. And just to respect the others. I picked up a 4X somewhere in the race. I'm not sure where, but or when. But if it was my fault, I'm sorry. There was a little bumping along the way, but otherwise, I felt it was quite good race. A lot of respect between the drivers, and it was fun.
Now, it'll be a different beast trying to tackle Long Beach with that hindrance. Was this kind of a one-off with it being an oval, or are you going to be back for good now?
That depends. I can also feel a little more strain in my left arm. It's only having one arm is tough. So I'm afraid I'm going to overload the good arm and damage that too, but I'll certainly try and see how it goes. But I tried the IMSA Vintage last night, and that didn't go too well on the Mulsanne straight. I missed an upshift to fifth and downshifted to third instead, and the Nissan engine didn't like that at all. So that was ending the race halfway through. So it's going to be more of a challenge, I'm sure, next week. But I'll give it a try in one of the warm-up races, and if it's okay, I'll hopefully see you again Saturday.
Well, turn the force feed back down a bit, and we hope to see you, bud.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, Laust Olsen experiencing some interesting challenges today, but still managing fourth in spite of them, which is going to close us up for today's broadcast. So a big thank you goes out to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Thanks to the team today as well, Stephen, Daniel, and Dougie, Jake, as we make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. The next race, as we've mentioned, Long Beach, is hopefully not going to be too much of a bloodbath. I mean, we did pretty good here on the oval, which tends to claim a lot of cars, so signs are good. That'll be Saturday, January 31st at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Up next, you heard it mentioned by Laust, the IMSA Vintage Series. They're going to Le Mans, though. That'll be at noon. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Is iRacing.